Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. We're going to get started in just a second, but I wanted to give a little thank you gift to those of you showing up early and on time. Because when you do, LinkedIn puts the word out to other people, says, hey, Neil's gone live, the training's gone live, you should come join us. My tip for you for success is something that I've been doing myself for a long time, and it works really well for me, is to just keep showing up. 90% of success is showing up. You just keep showing up to whatever is important to you, whether you're showing up in front of your customers, showing up into your network, coming into these trainings. If you just keep showing up and you never have less energy than when you started, then you're going to have success. It will lead to success. That is the biggest part, is just showing up. Basically, if you equate this to exercise, right? If you want to get in shape, you don't have to come up with fancy exercises. Just put on your tennis shoes and go to the sidewalk. If you do that much, show up on the sidewalk every day, then your body will take care of the rest of it. It'll go exercise, it'll walk, it'll jog, it'll do jumping jacks, it'll do whatever, right? But just showing up with your tennis shoes. And in sales or in government contracting or in our small businesses, right? It's the same thing. If you just keep showing up, even like these trainings, you show up and you never get tired of saying, hi, my name is Neil in the chat. Great to see everybody. Love to connect with you. Here's what I do, right? And you keep doing that, you're going to have a lot more success and you're going to have a lot more fun by doing that. Okay, just a quick little tip for those of you showing up early and on time. I really appreciate it. Let me just turn that guy off. Oh, I must not even had him on. Okay, let's get rocking and rolling in today's training. And this one's a fun one for me because it's really hard, I think, for some people to attack the status quo. They feel like they're going to be attacked themselves, but I'm not attacking people today. What I'm kind of attacking and trying to do a switch on and say, hey, let's look at this instead of this, is something I think that has just been holding back small businesses, women-owned small businesses, for a long time. And that's the SBA's Women-Owned Small Business Certification. I really believe that it fails women. I feel like the Small Business Administration's Women-Owned Small Business Program was supposed to help women-owned small businesses, but it doesn't. And I'll show you facts. I'll show you details on this. You can verify this yourself on your own. It does not help women-owned small businesses. It actually distracts, in my opinion, from the success that we want. And so I'm going to try to convince you through data and evidence, and then I'm going to try to show you where we can go with that. I don't want to be a naysayer. I wish the Women-Owned Small Business Set-Aside Program worked. I wish people getting those certifications would find their businesses have an advantage by having that certification, or what we call tags sometimes. But it really doesn't help. It doesn't help us a lot, but I think it actually holds us back. I think sometimes having, as long as we think that Women-Owned Small Business tag or certification, right? As long as we think that's the answer to our business, we get it, we're going to start magically having success, then we're going to be doing the wrong things. We're going to be looking in the wrong places. We're going to be believing the wrong information, false information, what I call gaslighting. And we'll talk about that. And again, I will back it up with data and evidence so that you can check this out yourself. The Women-Owned Small Business Program, it's one of 4 programs within the SBA. It should provide value to women-owned small businesses, right? But it doesn't. But there is good news, right? And the good news is you can absolutely win as a woman-owned small business. I'm just saying, forget about the tag. That's my 2026 thing, is I really want women-owned small businesses to succeed, and the tag is not the path. There's other paths to that success. The other thing I want you to keep in mind is that the federal government's not doing your business a favor by working with you. If they work with you, it's because you're supporting their needs. They have a mission, they have challenges they're trying to overcome, they have goals they're trying to achieve, or objectives they're trying to achieve. And if you can meet that need, then they're going to buy from you. They're not doing you a favor. You're giving them a fair product or service for a fair price, and they're paying you a fair price for that. That's just business. That nobody's doing anybody a favor here, and nobody's looking for the favors. We're looking for the ability to compete within that government market. All right, I'm going to break today's training up into 3 sections. The first thing is I want to lay out some facts about the Women-Owned Small Business Program. I'll share with you where I get my data so that you can go check it yourself. It's all publicly there for us to be able to see. The second thing is I want to explain why I think the SBA and the way they share information. And I don't mean this SBA, I mean for decades. The SBA just gaslights women-owned small businesses out there. I feel like sometimes they're gaslighting themselves into thinking they're doing a much better job. But if they actually faced reality, then they could change what they do without increasing their budget, but massively increase how they're helping small businesses succeed, in particular women-owned small businesses. And then the last thing I want to wrap up in today's training, and I'll make sure I have time for this, is what you can do to start winning more contracts, or contracts at all if you're not winning it, as a woman-owned small business. This training that I'm doing today, you can equate this to other small business types, so it definitely will be valuable to you. But I am focusing on the Woman-Owned Small Business Program today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market after I got into the Army as a small business government contractor, small business owner. And since 2018, I started the GovCon Chamber, and I've been the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. This is what I want for you. I want you to understand that process will lead to your success, not a tag like a woman-owned small business certification tag, but process leads to success. And every day I come back and try to teach you more of the process. If you haven't followed me already, join 42,000 other people who are following me on LinkedIn. They follow me because I share content that helps you with your small business growing within the federal market. And then make sure you subscribe to the Government Contracting Success newsletter. I put out content in there as well that's super valuable to you. An example of something I just put out recently is a list of 42 other newsletters. So here's mine, Government Contracting Success newsletter, but there's 42 other newsletters out there. And I just gave you the links and the people who run them because they also try to put out good information. I thought it'd be helpful to you. Tomorrow's training, just want to let you know, tomorrow I'm doing training on proposal writing. So here's, let me just zoom out for you really quick. How to write better proposals. And so it's 5 ways you can improve your proposal writing, 5 tips. So if you're struggling with writing proposals that come in and win at a good rate, then join me. I'd love to be able to share some tips that can help you succeed. Hey, do me a favor, in the chat, put women-owned small businesses rock if you're here to support women-owned small businesses or you are a woman-owned small business. And today is the day where I'm totally okay with you putting that in. I'd love to have you shout out your business designation so we kind of understand that. But let's get started with some facts about the Women-Owned Small Business Program within the SBA, right? And one thing to keep in mind, I am not talking about women-owned small businesses. I'm talking about the program, the tag, the thing that comes from the SBA and how that interferes with our success. And so the first thing I want to just talk about is that most women-owned small businesses out there succeed despite the certification or without the certification. And what I mean by this, and I'll talk about it in different times, is the set-aside. They're succeeding without the set-aside. It doesn't matter that they have the women-owned small business set-aside on their company, right? And so they're succeeding. That's something I really want you to keep in mind. And just some quick stats here. Inside of SBA, there's roughly 370,000 small businesses inside of DSBS at any given point. And 127,000 of them, 589, are self-certified women-owned small businesses. So this is kind of the old way it was done, where people just said, you know, I'm a veteran-owned small business, I'm a minority-owned small business, I'm a woman-owned small business. We just self-designated what we are, similar to maybe the census. If we say, we answer some questions. So that's self-certified women-owned small businesses, about 130,000 that are in the federal market right now. Of those, there's 19,908 women-owned or SBA certified women-owned small businesses. So the companies that had to jump through more hoops to get their certification from the SBA. And I'm going to show you some staggering numbers. One thing I definitely want to ask you to consider, and this is sometimes tough, but I think, and maybe this could go in the gaslighting slide, but I think people sometimes get a little too focused on bad apples out there who are saying they're women-owned small business, but they're not. Ignore them. You can't do a single thing about it, first off. And second, it's not that big of a deal. I will show you with data in a second, but it's not happening everywhere. Even if we hear about it, it's like, that's annoying. But the problem is if you can't do anything about it, then you kind of get pulled that way. But if you sit there and say, screw it, karma will take care of that. Let me take care of my business and move forward. If we do that, then we're focusing on what I call the circle of influence, what I actually have influence on. I don't really have influence over all these businesses that may or may not be doing the wrong thing as it relates to designations on women-owned small business. But again, it's not as big as you think. And I will show you this a little bit in a second. So there's 20,000 or so SBA certified women-owned businesses. So for me, I would think there'd be, somewhere near 20,000 women-owned small business set-asides. Not even close. So this next set of slides, and actually let me make myself a little smaller here. So you really see this data. So the bottom 4 bullets is where I'm at. In 2024, because I don't want to use 2025, the data is not completely populated yet. 2024, FY 2024, of all the set-asides that were out there, only 1,994 new contracts were set aside to women-owned small businesses. Think about this. And to just put it in perspective, if you look at the bottom, there was roughly about 700,000 new contracts in 2024, right? I discount things like option years, et cetera. That's not up for competition, right? So I discount all that. But if you think about the number of new contracts that were awarded in FY24, it's about 700,000. 2,000 of them, 2,000 out of 700,000 were set aside to women-owned small businesses. Is that 5%? No, it is not. 5% is more like, 35,000 instead of 2,000? And so we're nowhere near using the set-asides like we could be. But if you listen to the SBA, right, they make us think it's out there, it's being used, there's a whole lot. How can 20,000 women-owned small businesses who are SBA certified compete for only 2,000 set-aside contracts, right? This is a big deal. This is a fact. This is not an opinion of Neil's or something. You can go into USA Spending and you can say, show me FY 2024, new contracts only, but new contracts, and we're sole sourced or set aside to women-owned small business, you will see 1,994. That is staggeringly low to me. It's unacceptable to me. But I'm not going to be able to change the government on the set-asides because they have a very strong pattern of not caring about women-owned small businesses. If they cared about women-owned small businesses, they would do more set-asides. That is I guess that's an opinionated fact of mine, right? But the 1994 is not. And that only represents $600 million. Now, if you look to the right of my slide, if you're looking at this, I said 2,000 new contracts were set aside to women-owned small business. And if you look through 2023, 22, 21, 20, and down to 19, you'll see it hovers around 2,000 to 3,000 set-asides for women-owned small businesses. That is not enough set-asides for women-owned small businesses to even come close to the 5% goal. This is why the government is not hitting their goals, is because they're not even setting them aside. And you don't have to blame women-owned small businesses for not showing up. If we showed up, 20,000 of us to get certified, the least you can do is set aside more to the women-owned small business certification set aside. Again, when I get to the end, I'm going to tell you forget about it because they're not going to. If you compare these numbers, though, I just wanted to put it in perspective. There's 20,000 certified women-owned small businesses. There's about 5,000 8A firms. 20,000 women-owned small businesses, 5,000 8A. But if you look at the number of set-asides, there was 6,000 set-asides for 8A businesses. So 6,000 set-asides for the 5,000 8A firms. 2,000 set-asides for the 20,000 women-owned small businesses. And if you look through history, you can see that it was 6,000, basically 6,000 to 7,000 average there for 8A small businesses. So they have constantly set aside to the 8A small business program, which tells me they value that program. They use that program. And when you look at the staggering difference of set-aside numbers, 600 million went to women-owned small businesses, but 7 billion went to 8A small businesses. This kind of discrepancy will not be fixed by the government. If they were going to fix it, they would have fixed it. And so I'm going to show you at the end here things you can do to start taking control of your own business and not wait on them. Because when people show you what they're going to be like, they're not going to change. And then just for reference here, if you wanted to look at it, the total small business set-asides are, I said 113,000 opportunities were set aside to small business, not to any designation. By the way, that's where I want you to play. It's like, forget about the women-owned small business set aside. There's not enough there for 20,000 women-owned small businesses to win. So you need to figure out, well, where are your opportunities? And your opportunities are in the total small business set aside, meaning any small can compete, or even the large. And we'll talk about that later. And then last thing I just put here is how many opportunities that were new contracts that were not set aside at all, meaning full and open competition. And that was about 600,000. So when you start looking at these numbers, these are the facts of the situation and where women-owned small businesses sit. If I was a woman-owned small business, if I was on your team, this wouldn't discourage me. This is just a fact. Facts are like a wall in the path in front of you. You just see it. You don't keep hitting it and bouncing against it. You recognize it as a wall, go around it. And how do you go around it is something we need to help you do. And that's what I'm going to try to talk to you about. But these are some high-level facts in here. And now I want to go a little bit opinionated, if you let me do this, about how the SBA gaslights women-owned small businesses. First off, I just want to level set what the term gaslight means. It basically means using falsehoods to create, to make somebody feel like they're crazy. This is me saying this, right? It's like I'm using all these falsehoods to make me think what I know is true is wrong. And you can go in and look at this, and I'm not here to debate with anybody on this. What I'm saying is the data that the SBA puts out about the woman-owned small business certification gaslights us into thinking that they're doing the best they can. The agencies who give themselves an A grade together with the SBA, they're gaslighting us thinking, wow, they're doing their part. We're failing because of us. We must be failing because we're not good enough as a business. We're not showing up. We're not responding to enough sources sought. But if you're not even putting aside anything close to 5% as a set aside, then you're gaslighting us. And so the SBA's success story that they like to tell, it is completely untrue. It is not even based on any level of reality. Is the SBA valuable in certain ways? Sure. But right here, failing badly. And same thing with WOSBs, right? I'm not here to cut them any slack. There are people in the small business profession and the government that I love. They're awesome, and you can find them and you know they're great. That doesn't mean that the organization they work for is not gaslighting us. WOSBs love to do this. Look at this. We did a vendor outreach session for women. Yes, but how good was that? If I jump to the bottom of the slide really quick, you see that it says 49 women-owned small business set-asides from HHS. So let me just lay it out how I got that fact. 2024, new contracts, HHS, set aside or sole source to a woman-owned small business, right? 49. Put a 9 in there. 49, right? 49 contracts out of 21,000 new contracts at HHS were set aside. And HHS is supposed to be like one of the most friendly out there. The data does not support what they're telling us. And that's why I call it gaslighting out there, is because they inflate those totals and they count women who were succeeding despite the tag, despite that woman-owned small business certification, women who were succeeding in other certifications or in the total small business, or even small business, women-owned small businesses who were succeeding full and open. The government will count those and tell us, look how much we're doing for women-owned small businesses. This is not based on reality. One last piece of just data, and this is, again, factual data you can go look up. In FY 2024, the SBA claimed credit. They put out a whole report. Look how great we are. We give everybody in the whole government an A grade. Some of those really bad people, they're going to get like a B. Really? None of them came close to doing good for small businesses. But the SBA claimed that $27 billion went to women-owned small businesses, and they claimed that in a way that it was tied to the woman-owned small business program, the set-aside, the tag, right? That wasn't the way it happened. Less than $1 billion was through women-owned small business set-asides. I've done multiple trainings on this over the years, and in particular about FY 2024, showing the data and how I split it. And I walk you into USA spending and show you the government's data. This is not my opinion. And so 26 billion out of the 27 billion that the SBA takes credit for was because women-owned small businesses went and took it. And when I say they took it, I mean they demonstrated that they could serve the mission of the government. They could meet the challenges. They could help them achieve the objectives they have set for themselves. And it didn't matter that they had a woman-owned small business certification. They just demonstrated that they were the best business for it. When that's the case, when we look at it, it's why I want to transition out of this kind of negative part of gaslighting into, well, let's be more like these women-owned small businesses who are winning despite the women-owned small business certification, despite the SBA's tag that's out there. So that's where I want to take you on the last tips on what you can do to start winning contracts out there. Hey, before I move on, I just want to thank Voltron for sponsoring our live events. They help you write more winning federal proposals with their purpose-built AI. They'll help you go from solicitation to a compliant, compelling proposal, draft proposal, in minutes instead of weeks, which really allows you to accelerate your time to writing it, but also gives you time to make sure you're doing enough capture and 10xing that proposal, so it is has a much more likelihood to win. So do me a favor, throw thanks into the chat to Voltron. Thank you, Voltron. I appreciate it. Let me come back to my normal way of doing this. Really quickly, before I go into this last slide, I get very passionate about this because it does not make sense to me that women-owned small businesses make up 42% of American businesses. But when you look at what they're getting from the federal government contracting world, the discrepancy there is just crazy. I started off my journey on here working with hub zones when I thought it was crazy there, but this is even crazier. And it's something that I don't mean my passion to push too many of my opinions out there. What I really want is my passion to help drive your success. And so cut me a little slack if I come off a little too energetic on this. Okay, so here's some tips I want to share with you on what you can do to win contracts as a woman-owned small business going into FY 2026. The first thing I want you to remember is that you're a business, right? You're a business just like Lockheed Martin and Booz Allen and all these other businesses that have been around, and they're doing 10 million, 100 million, $1 billion in revenue, right? You are a business just like them. You are not a small business. That's a tag. You're not a woman-owned small business. That's a tag. You are a business, an American business that is here to support the government's mission. You are just as capable, you and your team, as solving the government's challenges as Booz Allen or Lockheed Martin. It doesn't matter whether you do facility services, lawn care, cybersecurity, AI and ML out there. It doesn't matter what your offering is. You and your company are leading experts. If you went to get a job, where would you go but to Booz Allen and other places where they pay you a ton of money to bring your expertise into their company? Well, always small businesses are experts coming out of those organizations and starting our own business. So when you go in and you talk to anybody, don't lead with the fact that you're a small business, woman-owned small business, etc. Lead with the fact that I am an expert at this and we can help you solve this. If you keep that in mind, you will really begin to shift your mindset in how you see and describe your company, which will in turn make the other person see you that way as well. They won't see you as any kind of tag or designation. They'll see you as, they're the experts at SharePoint or at cybersecurity or American Sign Language. And so that's really important for you to remember that you're an American business who can solve the needs of the federal agencies. All right, so here's 4 tips I'm going to leave you with on, and I try to, because I could give you 100 tips, right? And I try to boil them down into what I think are vitally important tips. The first one is have one clear, focused offer that buyers and teammates can instantly understand. My company, my last company, we were a Microsoft SharePoint support services company. So we did Microsoft SharePoint services. When we talked to people, we said Microsoft SharePoint services. And people either knew what we were doing and wanted to talk with us or didn't and did not want to talk with us. So an example is if we said that to a construction company who's worried about, being out in the field, et cetera, they're going to say, well, that's not us. Thanks. See ya. Right. And so it needs to be so clear that it's instantly understandable to be something of value to the buyer or something where they're like, no, I don't value that. And the fact that they don't value it is not a bad thing. Not everybody's going to buy what you sell. At least half the people will not buy or need what you sell. But your offer needs to be very clear so that they can understand that and make that determination fast. And the second thing is it needs to be focused. I need you to understand it has to be narrowed down all the way. If you're a staffing company, for example, don't say you do staffing. Don't say you do the engineering or something. Try to come down and go, we do Microsoft SharePoint engineer. We place Microsoft SharePoint engineers. And so that's a specific job. Or Microsoft SharePoint architects. You could get rid of the things that say Microsoft SharePoint professionals, right? That's very niched down. And the challenge some of us have sometimes, we think if we niche down and have that focused offer, that we lose opportunities, all this other stuff. But that's actually FOMO, fear of missing out on the other stuff. When you niche down, you actually will have more success. If I say I do Microsoft SharePoint, I place Microsoft SharePoint professionals, say I'm a staffing firm. Do I not think that there's a need for 50 of those companies, 50 companies out there that need Microsoft SharePoint folks? And when they're looking for them, who are they going to go to? The generalist staffing company or the staffing company that all we do is hire SharePoint people to place SharePoint people with you. There are absolutely 50 or 1,000 SharePoint needs out there that I could find. And once I'm in and I place a SharePoint person and I've built a relationship with Sally, I can say, hey, Sally, by the way, I see you have cyber requirement there. I could fill that too as well. Like once you're in, you can expand your services. But in order to get in, especially if you're in like 5 million or below, be very focused on your offer because it makes it so easy for everybody to go, this is where you would fit. This is where you can help me do what I want to do. First one, one clear focus offer. Second thing is become an expert at inbound and outbound sales. I'm just watching my time here. So outbound sales, we all kind of are familiar with. We knock on a door and we're trying to have a meeting. That's outbound sales where you're trying to instigate the meeting. Inbound sales is where they're coming to you. I had somebody yesterday post on one of my LinkedIn posts. They wrote a comment and they're saying, I've been around 2 years or I've been certified 2 years and I haven't got anything out of it. And I quickly went to DSBS, the SAM DSBS small business profile where federal buyers look. They were invisible in there. They had no capability statement, no keywords. And so what I wrote back was, go be visible. And that's inbound sales. Inbound sales is when you make it easy for the buyers and teammates to find you. Really think about this. Don't go do anything else if you haven't stopped for a second and said, is my capability statement in DSBS? Is there a good narrative? Is my capability statement and a little bit of a narrative in my LinkedIn profile? These places that people will search 24/7 for companies like yours. You want to become an expert at inbound and outbound sales by just taking some time to learn. I've got at least 15, 20 trainings just on inbound and outbound sales. You can watch on YouTube, etc. Watch the replays, learn about it. And I tell you where to be visible, where are buyers looking. Number 3, and I'm running out of time, I apologize for this, but the third thing you must put in place if you want to win contracts are relationships, strategic relationships. These are ones where there's a commitment on your part and the other person's part for mutual growth. It will take you a little time to find that company, but if you can find a company that's doing, let's say, 10 times more revenue than you are, 5 to 10 times. So no matter how big you are, look for 5 to 10 times bigger than you. Then you build that relationship. You get in there and say, hey, can we work together? I have a ton of training, 50 plus trainings on that, but you build 16 relationships with industry partners. So small or large companies, you generally probably want to start with small businesses because those are like 50 million and below. Start with these businesses and build those relationships. If you put those in place, it's like having 16 salespeople who are now in your company working for you. This is how you hear about chances for you to participate on opportunities and begin to win revenue. And then the fourth thing is keep in mind that subcontracting is the small business's friend. It's the best way to start going as a government contractor, far easier than trying to get a prime contract. If you think about 370,000 small businesses I mentioned earlier that are registered to sell to the federal government, only about 30,000 of them have won a prime contract. That means 300,000 plus of us have not. We could try to push for a prime contract, but what I want you to do is fully embrace subcontracting. Subcontract to build the credibility saying, yes, we've worked at the Army, we've worked at DHS, wherever, and to build those past performances around bullet number one, that clear, focused offer. If I say SharePoint placement and I show 10 placements, or if I say I do SharePoint services and I show 10 subcontracts that I'm on, that shows credibility that we know what we're doing. Our past performance supports that. So those are the 4 things I really want you to embrace going into the rest of the week and certainly into 2026. Here's 3 quick things to remember. Your value is you and your team, right? It's not your tag. Your value is your own expertise and your ability to communicate what your company does and your teams. Remember that that's your value, not a tag. And then the last thing is be the best at one thing. I try to figure out what was the one thing I wanted to leave you with. Be the very best at one thing. If you say I do training, come all the way down and go training on this thing in this way. Be the best at one thing and you'll have a lot of success. All right, I'm out of time here. So just remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is ending on time I want to. So I will see you in the next training.